This is Bad Pete No, and in tonight's Dyson Sphere Program video, we are going to be talking all about starting seeds. So first off, what is a seed? A seed is an 8-character integer that is used in all of the world generation randomization calculations that are part of the game. It's going to influence the position, size, type of every star, planet, and vein of resource that's going to be available to you. There are certain attributes that are fixed. For example, every seed is going to have 2 planets that have unipolar magnets. Your starting world will always be a Mediterranean world orbiting a gas giant that has only the standard resources with no titanium and no silicon. And your starting your starting system will always have exactly 4 planets, including the gas giant. But pretty much everything else is a roll of the dice. And so if you want to look for a better seed, they are certainly out there. Every seed is playable. No seed is going to block you from progressing through the game. There are definitely some more rare attributes that are worth pursuing that we are going to discuss. But even within just the basic seeds, not every seed is going to be created equally. You may find that of the other 2 solid planets in your system, one has titanium and no silicon, while the other has silicon and no titanium. Although the split is relatively rare, it's very common to find that one planet will have none of one, while the other planet may have very little of the other. So it's kind of lame to get stuck in a system that only has like a million silicon, where you're basically getting forced out of your own backyard very early on. Now, the idea of scouring for the perfect seed is definitely something that is going to be influenced by your play style. If you are a super hardcore vanilla player, then perhaps this is as far as you want to go. You want to hit start game, roll the dice, and accept things how they are. If you want to do that, that's perfectly fine. If you are a hardcore modder, then perhaps the seed that you choose isn't really even that influential, because you're going to be taking your game to extents where that is no longer a thing. If you are a speedrunner, then finding the perfect seed is absolutely critical, as this is going to relate to everything about your run. But if you want to give yourself just a little bit of a gentle boost, make the game slightly easier or slightly more interesting or more challenging even, but you don't want to go so far as to install mods, hunting down a great seed is a good way to do that. I will be providing a list of some different seeds that I have scoured at the end of this video. But first, let's talk about the 3 main attributes that I say give a starting system a real strong advantage. So those 3 attributes are going to be a tidally locked planet, a binary or trinary, or lastly, fire ice. So let's take a look at a couple of different seeds and see which has what. So first, we're going to take a look at 10668730. And I am going to try to remember to hit sandbox mode so that I don't have to keep re-recording these clips. Now we're going to skip the prologue. And then we're going to 1-click unlock. And then we're going to zoom out. And we will see that this is our binary. Now, trinaries do exist, but again, because you're only going to get 4 planets in a system, they're all going to be spinning right around here. I don't really see much of a benefit to having a trinary other than it's kind of nifty. If you find one in the wild, I would argue that's much more entertaining than hunting one down specifically. Now, this one does have kind of a failing drawback to it, and that's that this is a binary with titanium only, and it has no silicon. If we do want silicon, it does still exist in this system, but it's in relatively limited supply. So if you wanted a gentle boost that you're also going to kind of pay the price for later, maybe this system is right for you. So what is the overall benefit of having a binary? Well, it's all about that mid-game progression. In that part of the game where you're still trying to grind out yellow science, but you have not yet automated interplanetary logistics, you're going to find yourself constantly running laps between your titanium planet and your starter world. And while I have definitely observed you can limit that to one and only one trip and get it done right, having a binary with titanium on it is really beneficial because that lap running process is just so much faster. It requires so much less energy. You're far more likely to run out of juice and end up drifting through space because you didn't nail the landing just right. So I would argue that this is probably the greatest advantage if you just want a gentle buff that doesn't make the game too easy. So now we're going to get out of this world, and we're going to take a look at the next type of unique characteristic that you can find. And to do this, we're going to be taking a look at 12884631. And this starting system is going to have a tidally locked planet in it. So we're going to skip the prologue, unlock our tech, and zoom out. Yeah, look at this little cutie right here. So what's really great about tidally locked planets is that you have a fixed rotation in comparison to the number or the amount of time it takes to move around the star. In other words, a day is equal to a year is equal to a day is equal to a year. Your planet might as well not be spinning at all. And the advantage of that is that anything that is dependent on the position of a given tile of land relative to the star is no longer going to be an issue. So this is your solar panels, your EM rail launchers, and your ray receivers until you unlock critical photons, which allow them to operate at full speed at night in conjunction with planetary ionization. So long story short, if you want to have an easy time producing solar power in a manageable fashion, and you want your first Dyson Sphere to go up with relative ease because your EM rail ejectors are always pointing at the sun and you're not having to constantly futz with the perfect inclinations and positions of your swarm rings, then this is definitely a must-have. I would argue that this is something that you're going to want to look for in the rest of your cluster regardless, but to have it in your starting seed makes that first Dyson Sphere that's going to get you out of this system all the better. So the last characteristic that we are going to take a look at, I would argue is the most critical for speedrunners, but is great for everybody in general, and that's going to be fire ice. So for fire ice, we're going to take a look at 14578785. Sandbox mode again. So while it is technically possible to complete the game without ever getting any rare ores whatsoever, I would argue that fire ice is by far the most beneficial in an early game context, and to the best of my knowledge, it's the only one that's actually available in the starting planet in the starting system without any mods. So very, very early game, when you first start getting into oil refining, hydrogen can actually be kind of a problem that you have too much, and maybe you're going to need to burn off excess hydrogen. But that problem goes away very quickly, and you will find the majority of this game, you are just starved for the stuff. And having that early boost of fire ice can be extremely beneficial to get you up and running without having to deal with the complex recipes required for graphene as you transition into the mid-game. Now, again, just because a seed has an attribute does not mean that it has it in abundance. So this particular seed only has 222,000 fire ice, which is not going to get you very far. But rest assured, I have most definitely seen seeds that have upwards of, I believe I saw 19 million fire ice on one. I've also seen seeds where there were two rocky planets besides the starter world that did both have fire ice. I don't really see a strong benefit to that in that, if you can get 19 million on one planet, who cares if you can get 2 million and 4 million respectively on two planets, because that's, twice the complexity level for your logistics network. You have to power up two different planets. I don't really see that being a big deal. Although if you think it's nifty, I do have a seed that I'll be showing at the end that does include that. Other characteristics that you might want to take into consideration when selecting your seed are going to be things like making sure that you have enough iron and enough copper as you spread out, that you're not going to be starved for silicon, or maybe you do want to have like the most nerfed planet ever. So while finding fire ice or a binary and or trinary or a tidally locked planet in your starting system is pretty rare in and of itself, I have only found one that had more than one of those attributes, although I believe it's theoretically possible to get a binary, a fire ice, and a tidally locked all in a single system. I've scoured several hundred seeds, and I have not been able to find more than two of those attributes, two out of those three attributes in a single system. And that'd be this guy right here. So this starting system, not only does it have a tidally locked planet, but we can also see it has a decent amount of fire ice on the outermost planet, which is just over here. So I am not choosing to share the seed for this one at this time because I want to make some videos on this. I'm just going to be a little selfish and hold on to it for myself. But I assure you, the very first time that I accidentally hit pause trying to exit out of the menus, you're going to see that seed. So I'm not trying to keep it a seed forever, just a little bit until I get a chance to play around with it for myself. So lastly, comes the question of how do we find these seeds in the first place? Now, prior to sandbox mode, we would have to do this manually by grinding our way up to Universal Exploration Level 2. It doesn't take particularly long. You need about 450-ish iron and around 250-ish copper, and you're probably going to have to reload your fuel tank a little bit along the way. But it's not a huge challenge. So what you're looking at right now is a clip of me brute forcing it, not even trying to be super efficient at all, and just manually crafting all the blue cubes to do it. And I was able to complete this in about 30 minutes. Now, by contrast, if we look over at this beautiful seed that does have both that tidally locked planet and fire ice, I did try to automate things, and it makes a good demonstration of the fact that even in the extreme early game, you are always going to be more efficient going with automation over manual crafting. And I was able to get to that same milestone in under 17 minutes. Now, what you actually want to be doing to try and farm or to hunt for different seeds is just using the sandbox mode. Just pick a random seed, open up sandbox mode, and take a look at it, and see what attributes it has. If it has something interesting, take note of it. I would say don't stop at the first nifty seed you find. Pick at least a few that you can then kind of dive in a little bit deeper and compare the pros and cons of. It's also pretty fun to just kind of mindlessly rinse, repeat them. I was able to explore 8 seeds in less than 4 minutes. So if you think about that, it means you could probably explore an average of 120 seeds an hour if you're relatively quick with the muscle memory. It's not extremely taxing to do. Maybe you're in that weird sweet spot though, where, you want to explore for a seed, but you feel like using sandbox mode would be too cheaty. That's a very interesting mark on the spectrum of playstyle from vanilla absolutist all the way up to the crazy modder. That sweet spot where you will you'll scout your seed out in advance, but you won't use sandbox mode to do it. But if that's your jam, I would recommend automating the process. You could probably get it down to under 15 minutes if you do. So now I'm just going to put a list of really cool seeds up on the screen that I did explore, that I found some cool stuff in, and I wanted to share with you guys. If you feel that this information is not detailed enough, or if you find that certain things are inaccurate, well, it was free, so enjoy it. And if you did enjoy that or the video itself, there's some buttons down below. We do like when you hit those buttons. And I will see you next time. Thanks.